Coffee with Colm, and thank you for joining me. I want to continue this autumn series of Coffee with Colm. Over the last number of weeks, we've spoken about some of the work that we do in Wigwam. Wigwam is the coaching business myself and Michelle Barry operate. And Wigwam is itself an acronym for Wonderfully Inspiring Goals, WIG, Weekly Accountability Meeting, WAM. We think that's quite clever, to be honest. Anyway, in Wigwam, in our programs, we help people get better work-life balance. That's the whole idea. Wigwam, the strapline is work, play, live. And it in itself is a play on that movie or book that perhaps you would have heard of, Eat, Pray, Love. So work, play, live. And we believe that work-life balance is the new getting ahead. And certainly as we ratchet forward in our lives towards 2022, in the strangest of times with COVID all around us, I think work, play, live, work-life balance is really where it's all at. Anyway, over the last number of weeks here on Coffee with Colm, I have introduced you to some of the concepts that we explore more deeply in Wigwam. We looked at 81 patchwork quilts. We looked at 1% living. We looked at the roles you play. We looked at your HWRS score, your health, wealth, relationships, and spirit score. And last week in particular, I focused a little more on your health score and gave you some tips as to what you could do to improve that in 2022 and beyond. Today, I want to look at the W. I want to look at your wealth score. And before I do that, I'd ask that you would take a pen and paper and just put a number on a page, a number between 1 and 5, which represents your wealth score today. How do you feel about your personal wealth today? Between 1 and 5, 5 being no improvement possible, 1 being a lot of work required. Perhaps, as has happened to me in the past, it's been in the minus figures. Okay, whatever that number is between 1 and 5, so be it. It is what it is today, or at least it is how you feel about it today. So regardless of what that number is today, assuming there's a gap between it and 5, well then allow me to give you some ideas to consider in this next week, but more importantly into 2022 and beyond to ratchet, another Wigwamism, to ratchet your score forward from wherever it is now towards that ever elusive 5. The initial program that I conceived of that has actually led to Wigwam was a program called Think and Act Rich, Think and A.C.T. Rich. And it wasn't intended that people would in fact act like they have more money than they actually have. But it was a play on that book, Think and Grow Rich. But it also was an acronym in itself, A.C.T., an acronym which stood for Assets, Cash and Time. A, assets, C, cash, and T, time. So in my opinion, we need a personally tailored portfolio of assets, cash, and time for us to be truly rich in our lives. Assets are those things that will throw off an income for us whether we go to work or not. Cash, they don't take goodwill down at the supermarket. We must have something to pay for the goodies. And of course, time. Time is itself infinite. But our time, yours and mine, is definitely not. It's very much finite and therefore is the one truly irreplaceable resource available to us today. So I want you to begin to think and act rich, assets, cash and time. Let's just explore a couple of ways you can do that. You need to look at where your income is derived from today. And if your income is derived from a job or a business and just one of the above, well, then you're going to have to do something in the future in order for you to be able to at some point put that job or that business or that career to one side and therefore retire. So you're going to have to figure out a way of creating an asset portfolio, whatever that might look like for you, whatever you're comfortable with for you. And there are ways of doing that and people far more qualified than me to get you thinking about an asset portfolio into your future. But somehow, somewhere, somewhen, you're going to have to create an asset portfolio that works for you, that will give you the income you desire so that you can in fact retire. Retirement has nothing to do with age and everything to do with affordability. So you're going to have to figure out what assets you might engage in, perhaps invest in over the coming years so that you can at some point retire. Cash, as I said, the supermarket doesn't take good intentions. We all need cash. Billy Connolly once said the way to becoming healthy is to eat less and move more. And I thought how wonderfully simple that is. And if you apply that into wealth as opposed to health, well then it might sound like spend less and earn more, or spend less and create more. Makes perfect sense. So how are you going to spend less and create more? Well, if we look at creating more as a starting point, you can go and get yourself a second job if you wish. But of course, that's eating into your most precious resource, which is time. So my personal preference is to encourage you to learn in your spare time to learn the secrets of getting ahead by engaging in building an asset portfolio, perhaps starting a business part-time, something that has residual value to it, not just another job where you're trading time for money. That's my recommendation to you is begin to study the principles of getting ahead. Begin to study the principles of learning how to create a business for yourself that at some point in the future you could perhaps indeed sell or rent out and have it perform for you. In other words, pay you, even though at some point in the future you will have stopped working at it or in it. In terms of spending less, I recommend that you analyze your expenditure, analyze it deeply and look at those areas that you can really do without and begin to reduce the amount of money that you need to live the lifestyle that you truly want. I recommend that you begin to look at some of those frivolous expenses that you just take for granted every month and perhaps begin to wind them down or wind them out. For example, a €50 Sky subscription means that you probably have to go to work and earn €100 just to pay for it. So begin to look at everything from the perspective of how much time you must invest of your life into having that luxury available to you. And then ask yourself, is it worth it? And perhaps it is. That's entirely up to you to decide for yourself. Another thing to look at is your taxes. There are something like €500 million a year here in Ireland alone in unclaimed tax benefits, according to revenue. Something like €500 million worth of tax credits that are not being availed of here in Ireland. So take some time out and even invest in finding somebody, a really good tax advisor who will look at your situation and advise you where you can benefit by claiming some more tax benefits. So look for ways to increase your income, look for ways to reduce your expenses, look for ways to reduce your taxes legally. Tax avoidance is legal, tax evasion will put you in jail, so do so legally. And then the third thing I recommend you consider doing is reduce consumer debt. Reduce consumer debt, cut up those credit cards, stop buying stuff you don't need with money you don't have to impress people that sometimes you don't even like. It's time to take control of your consumer debt. There's good debt and bad debt. We're not going to get into all that today. Good debt is where you might invest in assets that in fact would give you a positive return. Bad debt is consumer debt. So please stop investing in consumer debt. And if you're going to invest in debt at all, make sure it's on the good side of the balance sheet. So to help you get ahead in 2022 in terms of your wealth, simply spend less and create more. And thank you for joining me for this week's Coffee with Colm. I hope and trust as ever you got something from it. Please consider what's been shared here today and apply it into your thinking for this next week. And then very importantly, come back next week and we'll share another coffee together and I'll ruminate on some other aspect of life and business. Between now and then, get some great coffee for sure. Get some fresh air, get some R&R. If you spend too much time with people, I really do recommend you take some time alone and get to know yourself. If you spend too much time alone, I really do recommend you go meet some people, even if that's online. And then when the time is right, and only when the time is right, get your head back in the game, get organized for the week ahead, get stuck in, make next week count, spend less, create more. And I'll see you here this time next week for another Coffee with Colm. Slán. I love great coffee. Talk to you soon. Bye for now. Take care.